Hi everyone, welcome to Coats and Jackets, and today I'm doing part 2 of the secondhand book haul. Part 1 was all of the manga that I found because it was a lot of manga, and part 2 is all of the other books that I found, most of which are comics, I'm not gonna lie. I'll start with Sherlock because I am a huge Sherlock fan. I've loved it ever since I was very, very little. I used to watch just about anything that was Sherlock. I was flipping through the channels and went, oh my gosh, that's LeVar Burton, and then went, oh my gosh, this is Sherlock, and that was the very first episode of Star Trek that I ever saw. I just thought it was so cool to find this little book set. It has A Study in Scarlet, and they've all got these interesting different little covers that have been drawn. Memories of Sherlock Holmes, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, The Return of Sherlock Holmes, The Hound of the Baskervilles, and The Sign of Four. A lot of these stories were published on their own as short stories and then later collected into novels, whereas one you've probably heard of them. A Scandal in Bohemia, A Case of Identity, The Five Orange Pips, The Adventure of the Speckled Band. Like, these are some more common, especially A Scandal in Bohemia, Sherlock tales that you've probably heard of. I've read a lot of Sherlock, mostly through the libraries over the years. I've never actually really owned Sherlock books before. I have a Ghost Stories book that has a Sherlock ghost story, short story in it. But that was the only Sherlock that I really owned. So this is just so cool to me that I can just sit down now and just read all these Sherlock tales. Speaking of Sherlock, I found this, which I thought was super cool. This was also at a secondhand sale that was for charity, and it is a children's graphic novel edition of The Hound of the Baskervilles, which is it's just too cool, and it is in pristine, perfect. You could hear it. You could probably hear it opening then. As I opened it, it's in absolute pristine condition. I don't know that the person that had it ever even read it. It's so pristine. It is just so cool. It is the story. It is a really cool condensed version of the story. It's just so neat. And even though it's technically, made as a kid's book, you could definitely read this as an adult. Speaking of kids' books, I found an R.L. Stine Fear Street book. It's not one of the original publications. It's one of the later done ones because it is a compilation of 2 of the Fear Street novels, Hide and Shriek and Who's Been Sleeping in My Grave. I did have a bunch of these as a kid. I don't know if I still have them or not. I still have some things in storage. They may be among some of the things that I gave up. It was this sort of older teen series version of Goosebumps. This is a secret codes book for the Game Boy Advance. This was one I didn't have. I actually have 3 or 4 little secret codes books for different handheld gaming systems. I've got 2 for the Game Boy, I think, and 1 for Game Boy Color. So I just find these things so fascinating. Some of them have high scores, some of them have actual codes that worked in the different games. Some of them I tried out and they didn't really work. It might have just been the version of the game I had, or it might have never been a thing that worked, I don't know. They're like little time capsules of history, particularly before the internet was huge, even though they kept being published after the internet was huge, because this was how you found out about different ways to get certain characters and get invincibility, and sometimes they'd have tips and tricks for how to beat a level, and anyway, it was one of those things that you would have never known without being able to Google. I found a copy of the Zombie Survival Guide. I have been wanting to read this book by Max Brooks for so long. I've read World War Z. That was gifted to me one year for Christmas by, I believe it was by Chris. I've been so interested in this, and there's a companion book as well with more tales that goes with this. What really wanted me to get this particular book though is the whole premise of this is based on an actual wartime backup escape plan for, I believe, and I might be wrong, I'll know when I start reading it for sure, but I believe that the military strategy was how to fortify and hold out on Belle Island, I believe. So I really want to read this. I've had really good luck with numbers, just like in my manga one where I actually found the next volume of a manga I'd already been reading that I needed. I already have volume 1 of Adventure Time, and now I have volumes 2 and 3 as well. So I'm very excited to read these comics. I love the Adventure Time comics. I love the TV show as well. I also happened to find the Adventure Time Encyclopedia, which is not a comic, but it's a really neat companion book to the series that tells you about all the different stuff in the show. And I mean, it starts with a map. Oh, and it's the end papers that's a map, and I love that. I love when they do books with maps of things from the world, and then on the back it's got like different posters. Oh, it's so cute. This was a really cool anthology I found called Flight. This was one of the pricier books at the thrift store at the time. Volume 1 was also the one that was in the best condition. You can see it's a bit beat up. They did have the first 5 volumes of this, but volumes 2 through 5 were severely damaged, and like pages were ripped and falling out, and it just wasn't worth it, especially since these were still $10 each at the thrift store. It's a really great compilation of short stories by a variety of writers and artists, and I was so happy to check this out. I mean, it's got so many different styles, and each issue of Flight, I believe, was based on a certain specific theme. It's got amazing coloring and lettering that varies with each story and fits the tone so well. I've been flipping through it, and you just get such a sense of the stories from how they're put together. I am so excited to actually get to read this later. This was a bit of a different find. I almost didn't pick this up at first until I realized what it was. I just saw the spine and it kind of seemed like it might have been like a how-to book. But then I picked it up and looked at it better, and it's actually an art book. It is a collection of illustrations and short stories, short comics, by Korean artists. And I thought that was just so cool. This is volume 1. This is a series that was published. I'm not sure how many other volumes there are, but I do know there is a volume 2. I cannot wait to get into this and learn a bit more about each artist that they profile, as well as read some of the stories that are in here. Straight from Korea comes an all-new, breathtaking anthology art book series. From video games to animation to comics, Korean illustrators have touched all facets of modern media. Now they have a place where they can visualize their own dreams. Apple lets these artists shine as their creativity flows through beautifully rendered artwork and wondrous original tales. This was literally $1. I couldn't believe it. I just think this is I've already said it and I don't care. It's just the coolest thing. So that was it. That was everything I picked up, and I know I probably rambled a bit too much. I would love to hear in the comments if there was one that looked particularly interesting to you, or if you've read it before, or what you think of it. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day, everybody. Bye.